Welcome back to Initial Review. Today we have a special double feature. But before we begin, you can follow us at Afro Anime Initiative on Facebook and Instagram, Afro underscore AI on Twitter, and right here on YouTube. And hit that like, share, and subscribe button on YouTube. Help the channel grow. Well, like I said, today we have a special treat in Initial Reviews. We're doing a double feature of Judas and the Black Messiah from HBO Max and One Night in Miami from Amazon Prime. Man, guys, I'm gonna be real honest with you. I don't want to do this video. Not because these are bad movies. To tell you the truth, these are phenomenal movies. And I think everybody should watch them because they really do speak about the Black experience from both a historical point of view and a fictional telling of Black opinions of the times and of current situations now. But I don't want to do this because I'm a rant and I'm going to get mad and I don't want to mess up nothing and skip over any names. But in all honesty, these are some really incredible movies. Let's start off with Judas and the Black Messiah. Judas and the Black Messiah is a movie produced, again, like I said, for HBO Max from Ryan Coogler Productions, or not Productions, that's not the name of this place. It's Proximity Media. And directed by Sean King and written by Coogler, Sean King, and Ryan King. It stars Daniel Kaluuya as Fred Hampton, Lakeith Stanfield as Bill O'Neill, Jesse Plimos as Ray Mitchell, and Dominique Fishburne as Deborah Johnson. There are a lot of other people in the cast. Like I said, great cast for this movie. But man, this is the story of Fred Hampton and the Chicago, Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers and the rise of the organization and how they were affecting real change, how they were feeding kids in the community, how they were giving health care to the community, education to the community, and how the feds was watching and tried to destroy it. Like, really have a conversation in this movie where the feds are describing the Black Panther as the other side of the coin of the KKK. They put a group, an organization fighting against oppression as the same as a group of people just running around killing people just because of the color of their skin. And the parallels to 2021 from 1968 are unfortunately astonishing that we still going through the same stuff. But I digress. This movie opens up with a quick historical showing of footage of the Civil Rights Movement and the end of the Civil Rights Movement, because this takes place after Malcolm and Martin are being assassinated. This is showing the rise of the Black Panther Party nationwide, the growing coalition between the Black Panthers and other organizations, Poor Whites, the Sons of the Patriots, the Puerto Rican organizations in Chicago unite against one organization, the corruption of the system, and the Chicago the Police Department. Sound familiar? Does it sound familiar about anything? Guys, and again, I'm gonna be honest with you. I just want to rant. I do. I want to talk about the movies, but I want to rant because it's shocking, or not shocking, it's saddening to me that the same conversations that they were having back then we're still having today. Police brutality, healthcare, education, fair wages, the ability to walk down the street without being harassed. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking about this about, well, the Black Panthers were a radical organization. It's only radical to the oppressor when people want to be free. Freedom is not radical if you're the person who's free already. You know, you fine, but the other people aren't, and that's what this story is about. It's about the William O'Neill, a Wild Bill, and his infiltration of the Black Panther Party because the dude was a criminal crook, robbing black people. The feds caught him and used him against more black people. Again, he was a pariah to his people. And that's stuff that we still see today. I mean, stop snitching is stupid, because if you see some people doing some crimes and they mess up the community, snitch on them motherfuckers. But the bigger problem is this dude turned against the organization that was trying to help people, while this whole time he was just being a jackass, a thief. He didn't target white people from what the movie was showing. He only went after black folk. He only went after them because, you know, he showed a badge. People don't ask questions. That's how he did his crimes. He proposed as a Fed anyway. There are scenes in this movie where there are conversations being taken place with Fred Hampton and members of the Black Panther organization, and they talk about what they do and what they're trying to do, and they talk to the gangs. They tell the gangs, like, y'all out here, y'all feeding a lot of people, y'all employ people with the gangs, y'all got all the guns, but imagine if you take that stuff instead of just preying on your people and use it to elevate them. How much more money could they have for drugs? How much more money could they have for gambling and prostitution? Like, even on the intelligent tip, if you raise the community up when they got extra cash for stuff, they can even do some more illicit things. But the fact is, you preying on them instead of helping them, instead of building them up where they can be better, where they can have more and be free and not have to be persecuted for the things that they do that everybody else gets to do. Fred Hampton was real intelligent the way he talked to other organizations. There's a scene where he goes to get the Sons of the Patriots. The Sons of the Patriots got the Confederate flag back there, preaching they stuff, and Fred Hampton come and tell them, like, yeah, so y'all was the overseers on the plantation. But imagine what would happen if the slaves and the overseers got together and overthrew the master. Poor blacks, poor whites, everybody would have been elevated instead of fighting against each other. And we see this now in today's society where you have the higher powers taking all the people at the bottom and having them fighting against each other when the ones at the top are the real problem. It's so many scenes like that in this movie. Judas and the Black Messiah, even though it is an ironic title because Fred Hampton didn't like that. Fred Hampton believed there shouldn't just be one leader of a movement. Every member of the movement is a leader. Everybody should go out there because, again, the government targets these people. You take out the head, everything falls. Fred Hampton got arrested in the they said for stealing $70 worth of ice cream. The movement fell apart. Donations went down. Recruitment went down. It got disorganized. More infiltration happened other than Wild Bill because everybody was focused on the one leader. Now, was Fred Hampton charismatic? Yes, because I guarantee you that, now look, I forgot the actor's name that fast. When you watch this movie, Daniel Kaluuya, he shows the charm, the charisma, I couldn't say charisma, of Fred Hampton, and how he does attract people and how he was able to speak to them, not talking down to them. Well, after there's a scene about that too. Not talking down to them, but talking to them and let them know, hey, this is the real, this is what I want to do, this is what you can do. And it benefits us both. But it takes more than just one person to do that. And there's a scene in the movie where Deborah Johnson, who becomes his wife, his mother, his children, talks about that, like, yo, man, you got to pick your words better because everybody want to listen, but you got to pick your words better so more people can hear. And taking her advice and her skills as a writer, he did, and more people did listen. Fred Hampton moved up to the national level due to his speeches, due to his broadcast and talking to the people. And we see this stuff happening today. We see how black leaders are taken away from their communities, are pulled out and separated and are turned against or just taken away, and everything falls apart. So everybody's looking for that savior, that Messiah. Fred Hampton, even back then, was saying, no, we don't need a Messiah. All of us can do it. Everybody needs to. We all can. And it's just funny that you see this stuff going on today. But back to the movie. In the movie, there are incredible scenes where you have the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, describing why he wants to do this. He sees them as a threat. He sees black people rising up, being able to do better as a threat. They're going to rape and pillage with the iron of, but that's what white society did. What do you think slavery was? Y'all went, raped and pillaged Africa and brought cats over here to America to work for free. That's raping and pillaging. But a black man saying he wanted to be treated fairly, get an education, have health care, and his kids fed and have a safe home, how is that raping and pillaging? But that's how that thought process was. You had people thinking that, yo, but I'm fighting against the KKK, but I also need to fight against the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers are just as radical as random people running around killing black folks. And black people who want just the rights that America has promised them are on the same level. And it showed that dichotomy in how black people, again, were used to bring down the movement. We had that stuff today. We had that during slavery. It would have been more slave revolts in America if other slaves didn't turn them in and didn't trick. That famous saying, people say Harriet Tubman say it, some people say it didn't, but that famous quote, if more people realized they were slaves, you could have freed more of them. But again, if you don't know you're a slave, what you gonna do? You think everything's fine. this movie points a lot of those parallels out. It points a lot of parallels from the days of slavery to 1968, 1969 to 2021, where you have these movements, you have these organizations that say they speak for black people and they really don't. They're working with the government. You have these organizations where you people infiltrate because they own personal problems. Again, William O'Neal was only able to get into the Black Panthers. The only reason he was forced to that situation because he was out there doing dumb stuff, robbing black people, and got caught in the first place. Imagine if William O'Neal had just went straight into being a Black Panther, never got caught by the feds, never did none of those things. It would have been a different story, at least for the Chicago chapter. Because yes, we had other informants. George Sampson. I didn't know the details of this story, that George Sampson or George Sams was an informant for the FBI, but he ratted out or pointed fingers at another member of the Black Panther. They murdered that man who was innocent, and George went on a run, went to different other Black Panther headquarters to give the FBI the reason to go in. Oh, they're holding the fugitive. We have every right to go in there, but the fugitive they were holding was an FBI informant. Those things were done on purpose to fight against organizations whose sole purpose was to elevate their people, to fight against corruption. That's what they were dealing with. That's what we're dealing with now. And the fact that a lot of people will not recognize that until they watch this movie, and I think you should. Watch this movie. Recognize the things that are going on in society. Take the stuff from the movies and bring it into now. But back to the movie, there are even scenes where William O'Neal is conflicted. He's like, I don't want to do this, but my FBI handler, I look up to him as a role model. We didn't have a lot of role models back then. Malcolm and Martin, they got killed. But the thing is, he's looking to a white man who's using him to hurt other black people as a role model without realizing, but it's that white man society that took away all the black role models. We keep falling down into this paradox of self-destruction and not acknowledging that the reason we do is because somebody destroyed us first. And we have to have those conversations. I think Judas and the Black Messiah brings a lot of those things up. These things weren't done willy-nilly. This attack on black organizations weren't done because somebody just got afraid. These were systematic attempts to bring down those who wanted to do better for us. And I applaud Sean King, Ryan Coogler, and the entire production and HBO for putting this movie out there. It's released in theaters and it's already currently on HBO Max. And I think if you have HBO Max, do it. And if you want to risk it, go to the theater. But HBO Max, sit at home safely, watch this, where you can also have a real frank discussion with your family. Let them watch it. Because that's another beautiful thing I like about this movie. I'm a grown man. Sex is part of life. But it's nice to watch a love scene with a black couple, and they ain't gotta be naked. We just show the love. It's not about just the physicality. Beautifully portrayed in this movie, the love between Fred Hampton and Deborah Johnson. It is done so well, and how they're deeply connected, and it's not just about, you know, physical attraction. And they show this. They show it throughout the movie. Man, see, again, I told you guys, I didn't do notes. I just wanted to talk, and I'm forgetting a couple of things, but I'm remembering some things too. The fact that there are scenes with William, well, they catch him, where because they're trying to get the gangs together, Fred Hampton's like, no, we need to talk to all the gangs. The gangs in Chicago got power. They got guns. They got weapons. Imagine united against the cops. When you take all the broken black and white and brown gangs and put them together, they outnumber the cops. The only way the cops can keep control is because they keep the gangs separate. They keep the gangs fighting each other. We see that happening today. That just happened recently in Chicago, where you had Latino gangs come together to protect Latino neighborhood because, you know, black people were supposedly rioting after, you know, another murder by the cops. But these Latino gangs were attacking innocent people who weren't a part of them, people who weren't looting. And you had the cops like, yeah, let them do this. We have the video, we have the audio. But no, you don't want to point that out, that, that the cops are doing this on purpose, keeping us separate when we should be working together. They've been doing that since 1968. They've probably been doing it long before that. This movie shows that. It shows how the fear of these organizations who were gangs, again, they called them gangs, but they weren't gangs. They were organizations trying to benefit their communities, the white, the Puerto Rican, and the black community, trying to benefit their community, and they looked at them as terrorists. A bigger threat than China is what J. Edgar Hoover said. A bigger threat than China. This is during the Cold War. This is while the Korean War, the Vietnam War, those were going. It's like, but black people trying to fight for themselves is the biggest threat. And that mind state is still around. You still have that mind state when people thinking that because we want fair minimum wages, a $15 minimum wage, or, hey, we just don't want to get shot in the street by cops, that we're the enemy. That because we want to stand up for ourselves and say Black Lives Matter, we're saying nobody else lives matter. No, we're saying we matter. And if you think we don't, you're part of the problem. They've been dealing with that since 1968. It's the same stuff. And this movie points it out in a beautiful way. They even talk about black organizations not doing what they're supposed to do. That's why we keep creating new organizations, because the ones we have were falling or corrupt or got bought out. One of the best lines in the movie to me, I don't think we ever talked about this on the podcast. Follow us on the podcast for Afro Anime Initiative, or Initiative BTS, where we do more political stuff. I don't think I ever talked about this, but I can't really stand NAACP. I just don't, and maybe I'll go into more detail, but there's a great line in this movie where one of the Panther members said, yeah, I used to be with the NAACP, but they was moving too slow. They weren't doing anything. They were having discussions, but not taking any action. Should you be educated and be intelligent about the deeds you do? Correct. But if you just sit there and don't do anything, your intelligence doesn't count for nothing. And I thought that was a great line because, again, it showed that people had these conversations about black organizations. Like, what are y'all really doing? What are you really doing? And if I say you're not doing anything, then I need to look at myself and say, like, well, okay, what am I doing? That's what the Black Panthers did. They went and said, hey, you think you need to do something? Come and do something. Come and do something on the ground. Help us build this health center. Help us feed these children. Help us walk these kids to school so they can get there safe without being harassed or picked on by the cops. Help us walk the streets to stop other criminals. Help us watch the cops from being criminals and doing shakedowns and having to pay off again. It's Chicago. It's every major city. These cats been corrupt. All this, well, good cops and Blue Lives Matter. Cops been corrupt since day one in this country. Hell, you don't want to look at this movie, Gangs in New York. And it's funny how we sit here, and because when black people stand up for themselves, we forget about all the dirt that these organizations have been doing for decades. Decades. And again, Judas and the Black Messiah points it out. Beautiful, great film. Fantastic film. I applaud the entire team. And like I said, check it out. It's on HBO Max right now. And in theaters too. So let's move on to part 2 of our double feature. Because like I said, I can rant about these things forever. But our next part of our double feature is One Night in Miami. And there's the fictional telling of Malcolm X, Cassius Clay or Muhammad Ali, and Jim Brown and Sam Cooke meeting after Muhammad Ali has won his first championship. About to change his name from Cassius Clay. I say it's a fictional telling. They did meet, and these guys did have interactions, but this particular one did not really happen. It was directed by Regina King. It's her first debut. I think she did a fantastic job. This is a character piece about the points of view, again, of the black people doing the civil rights movement and the struggles and point of views that, again, black people had, and especially the stuff that they were talking about when it comes to celebrity and their role in the movement. This is definitely it. You have Kingston Benadur as Malcolm X. You have Eli Gore as Cassius Clay. You have Aaliyah Hodge as Jim Brown, and Leslie Odom Jr. as Sam Cooke. And when I tell you that these 4 men bring such a dynamic and introspective thing to the viewpoint of the time, it just it makes you think, which is what a good film should do, even if it's just a fun film. It makes you think. We have Malcolm, and the way they're moving the timeline in this point in his time, he's about to recruit Cassius Clay into the Nation of Islam, but he's also thinking about leaving, and he wants Muhammad to do it with him because he found out some stuff about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And it's just the background noise, really. I want to say noise, but it's the background of the catalyst for Malcolm creating this meeting. You have Jim Brown, who is like right now literally one of the greatest football players, and how his outspokenness is loved, but still treated like a Negro, because they open up the film with Jim Brown going to meet his old, I believe his college coach, and how the coach love him, and we love what you're doing, and we glad you from this small island, and you are a pride to our people. So he's an old man, and he need to go do something for his granddaughter. So Jim Brown like, okay, let me come in and help you. And he turned to him like this, you know, we don't let black people in the house. You love me, you're proud of me, but you don't let black people in the house. I'm still a Negro. I'm still a nigga. That's the reality. So you have that. You have Sam Cooke, one of the, biggest selling record labels. He got his thing, he making money, but he sings fluff pieces. He sings love songs, begging for love. And he does these things at the Coca-Cabana, the whitest club in the world at the time. And he gets booed and stuff out of there because, again, he's trying to do white people stuff. They don't want to hear from you. They want to hear from a white person. Oh, I got coal in my eye. I'm sorry, y'all. They don't want to hear that. But again, that's the background of it. Where these men are in their lives, but how these men are a symbol for the black community. During a time of revolution, during a time of outspokenness, of people stepping up, these men have a large voice. And Malcolm X in this movie is trying to tell them, hey, we need to use this voice to do more. We could do so much more. We can move mountains. Sam can go out there and sing and touch people that Malcolm will never get with a speech. Muhammad Ali can go out there and kick a white man's butt, say a couple of words and hit and touch people that people ain't never gonna see. Jim Brown can go out there and speak to a part of America and let them know what's going on with us. And if they unite and do it, how they can change the world. And it goes into a lot of things that Malcolm has said before, how you shouldn't trust celebrities to lead the movement anyway. And it's in this movie where he speaks about, it's not even about them as being celebrities, but it's about them as being men with a voice, and they need to use them to help their people. And you have the movement of, a radical thought of revolution, or we got to use economics from Sam Cooke's point of view, because Sam Cooke out there getting black artists rich. And to him, it's like, that's way more important than me sitting here and doing a rally or a march. If I help these people get rich to build their fortune, protect their family, and build their community. Sam Cooke talk about the charitable work he did. But the way this movie is framed, this is before he made the song The Change Go Come. And this is before he started doing his protest music. Because, again, we're in the 60s, and we're at this point where protest music, where you got people who you think will be a part of the struggle. What you would think would be privileged white people, even though they may not be privileged, but they might have it. And they singing about the struggle and how this government is corrupt and things need to change. But you have black artists that aren't doing that. That's pointed out, too, about the point of view of some black people that be like, but me, the revolutionary thing is for me to take care of my family. The revolutionary thing is to me to have wealth, but that's doesn't help the community. And then you have people like Jim Brown who do the slow and steady, and it doesn't have to be an all-out war, but it's also like, but if it's not, what are we fighting for then? Why are we speaking out if it's not going to be for a change? Not just acceptance, but a change. And there's another beautiful scene with the Jim Brown where he talks about his value. My value is I'm still a slave. This is Jim Brown now in the 1960s talking about how he's a slave and how that's all I'm good for. I'm just for this. I'm not for that. None of this stuff means a thing. As soon as I get hurt, they're going to toss me inside and I'm going into the trash. But we have black athletes out here. Some people want to use them to lead movements, but they don't understand. But you can't lead a movement when your whole livelihood is based off of the people you're fighting against. You can't leave a movement when as soon as you over and done, they're going to toss you away. Where your money going to come from? How you going to live and support somebody? You can't live and support somebody leading the movement if you're poor. Because, again, economics is important. Something that both movies point out. Let me say it again. Both movies, Judas and the Black Messiah, One Night in Miami, both point out for any revolution to be sustained, for any permanent change, there has to be some economics behind it. You can't just go mark and mark. There got to be cash behind it. There has to be power behind it. Again, the same conversation we having now in 2021, where you have people who want to give hopes and prayers and just mark down the street with signs. That's attention. That's not power. Power is in the people, but only when the people use the power to actually make change, not just to be seen. And a lot of that's been pointed out in both of these movies, where there has to be a collective organization, and it has to be an organization that's not based off of one person. Because when it's based off of one person, that's when the enemy can attack. You cut off the head, you kill the animal. But One Night in Miami also has a lot of beautiful poignant scenes just about the struggle and the pressure of being a black man in America. Having a voice and wanting to stand up for your people and all that comes along with it. All the attacks from both your enemy and the people you're trying to help. And how that weighs on you and how mentally draining that can be. And that unfortunately, if you aren't ready to die for these things, you may not have enough to be successful with it. You may not have enough to see it through to the finish line. Because once again, I'm talking about movies based in the 1960s. From like 1960 to 1969, the time frame of these things. It's 2021 and we're still having these same conversations. We're still having the same conversation about black organizations being infiltrated by racists and white supremacists. We're still having the same conversation about it being done by black people. We're still having the same conversation about black people selling us out to the people who hate us. And I'm not talking about Republicans and Democrats. I'm just talking about people, period, who hate us. No matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat, you selling us out to the people who hate us for your own personal gain. And when those things happen, you destroy everything, including your own personal gain. Both movies, of course, end with historical notes. Judas and the Black Messiah, of course, ends with the death of Fred Hampton and the complete fall of the high period, the height of the Black Panther Party in Chicago. But it still goes on to tell you what they did and what they do and what they're still doing to this day, by the way. Both Deborah Johnson and Fred Hampton Jr. are both still around. They're still doing good work with the Black Panther Party. And they talk about Malcolm and what Muhammad Ali went on, what Sam Cooke did later on with his music, and what Jim Brown later on did. And there's even some scenes in One Night in Miami where Jim Brown, the character of Jim Brown, even says, "I'm never going to change." And well, we see what's going on with Jim Brown in his old age. Because again, it weighs on you trying to be a leader for people that don't know they need to be led out of something. Because again, back to that quote, you can free a lot of more slaves if they realize they're slaves. Well, a lot of people don't realize that stuff. And those points are pointed out to in both movies. There are both scenes in the movies where you have people who are worried about their self-interest when the organizations or celebrity or activists ask for help. And the people are like, but I got to worry about myself. That's a good job. It's still a job that somebody can take away from you. But the ability to have your own, nobody can take away from you. And those people don't see it. They think everything's fine because they have a job. And they're not willing to help people out. And in the Judas and the Black Messiah, the scene, the person calls the cops on the Black Panther. The Panther's fighting for your rights, and you call the cops on them. The cops want to kill them. The corrupt cops. We talk about that shows up in One Night in Miami too, because Malcolm is paranoid about being followed, which we know he was, the FBI. Again, FBI. Cassius Clay is playing with him like that's not true. But we constantly see these same group of white men that's constantly following these four gentlemen, these celebrities, and they are surveilling them. And we have proof now through history and open documents. The FBI did this. They saw black activism as a threat to the American way of life. Think about that. America is so inherently racist that black people wanting to be a part of the American dream and free is a threat to America. We see that in One Night in Miami. We see it in Judas and the Black Messiah. And we see this every day now on the news when we talk about organizations and this group is doing this and this activist is this, and suddenly some dirt come out on this activist to undermine them to just whatever. And it's usually a black person used to talk about that activist. These tactics are not new. And I love how both of these movies point them out in a narrative way where they point them out, but they're not throwing it in your face. They're like, nah, this is the way it is. And we have to be prepared for it. We have to fight against these things. We have to look out for these things. We have to look out for those because all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And the ones that you might surround yourself with may not be the ones that's down for the movement. That don't mean you don't surround yourself with them, but it definitely means you need to watch your back. Another great lesson that both movies try to teach. They teach it a little bit better to me in Judas and the Black Messiah with the organization, with the Black Panthers and what Fred Hampton and his lieutenants went through. But they definitely point out the paranoia of Malcolm X in One Night in Miami. Because Malcolm is worried that both the nation and the cops is after him, and that the nation might be working with the feds because he wants to move away from it and do something different because Malcolm is popular. Again, even though Malcolm spoke out against celebrities leading the movement, that doesn't mean they don't have a place in the movement. And that's the thing that I really like how they point that out with One Night in Miami, that the celebrities do have a place in the movement. They just shouldn't really necessarily be the leaders because they can be compromised because they need white society to funnel their money to make them celebrities. Which was just pointed out recently by Denzel Washington. We might talk about that in the podcast this week. But yeah, again, black celebrities can be easily compromised. And these movies talk about the compromising of our organizations and the people who want to fight for us. So, like I said, if you want to rant about the stuff I'm seeing in society instead of the movies, but I do recommend both movies. One Night in Miami, fantastic. Amazon Prime, a really nice film. Again, it's a character study about the black male in the black society and what celebrity is to it. And then Judas and the Black Messiah is just a really good telling of Fred Hampton's story and the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party and the stuff that we went through and how hard the FBI tried to go against us and how that struggle still continues and those organizations are still fighting. So watch them. Tell me how you feel in the comments. Oh, hey, tell me how you feel about just some of the stuff I'm saying. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know. Yeah, and I look forward to hearing from you. But follow the initiative again on all our social media at Afro Anime Initiative on Facebook and Instagram, and Afro_AI right here on YouTube and on Twitter. And right here on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. Catch you later. Peace.